Well, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. A warm welcome wherever you are joining us from. My name is Alex Preston. I'm a freelance journalist and senior writer for PAX magazine, and I'm host of our roundtable discussion on cabin interior trends. Now, while the pandemic has had a lasting effect on airline MRO budgets, cabin interior refreshments are continuing. Demands for in-flight connectivity and passenger comfort continue to spark new interior trends, creating a challenge for designers and manufacturers to come up with requirements to provide lightweight, efficient, comfortable, and sustainable solutions. Now, ahead of this year's Aircraft Interiors Expo, AIX is holding a series of roundtables, inviting experts within the industry to come together to discuss emerging trends. And I'm delighted to be joined by some of those experts now. And in alphabetical order, I have Carsten Laus, SVP, Product Innovation and Digitalization at DL Aviation. Hi, Carsten. Sam Wayne, Account Manager from Betty Wayne Aerospace. Beth DeYoung, VP of Business Development, Aircraft Interiors at Safran. And Karen McAlpine, Design Director at Sexui Kydex. Many thank you for joining me today. Now, as I alluded in my preamble there, airlines are continuing to invest in interior refurbishments. In recent weeks and months, we've seen a number of airlines kind of lift the curtain on some comprehensive cabin projects. After all that has happened in the last 3 years or so, it seems that the cabin interior market is a pretty exciting place to be in at the moment. Before we delve into the core of today's discussion, Carsten, I'd like to ask you first, how excited are you about what is happening in this interiors market at the moment?
Yeah, thank you. Actually, you mentioned it. It's very exciting right now because after the pandemic situation, the market is really kicking in again. And we see a lot of very, very good discussions regarding the future of cabin interiors, regarding cleanability, sustainability, and all those interesting issues. Connectivity is obviously one of the important ones as well. And we see airlines coming back and asking questions, starting upgrade solutions packages. So there's a lot of movement. So happy to be on the Aircraft Interior Show with all our partners and customers together to see that kick in.
Excellent. Beth, might I come to you as well? I mean, how excited is Safran yourself about what's taking place at the moment?
Well, it really is exciting, and it's changing on so many different fronts that it's a really wonderful time to be in the industry. I think Carsten hit it when he said that sustainability, digitalization is big. Passenger comfort is important too. And while during the pandemic, there was a tremendous amount of research on cleanliness in the cabin, there's a few items that have stayed and we'll expect to see into the future. But fundamentally, the building blocks of the interior are changing, and it's a great time to be in the aircraft interior business.
Indeed. Now, Samba, I mean, your company is celebrating 40 years this year, so you've obviously seen a lot of trends and a lot of changes over that time. How excited are you to be in this marketplace at the moment?
Yeah. I concur with my colleagues here that it's been a couple of difficult years, and I think last year things were really coming back, and this year I think the general trend is onwards and upwards, and all the airlines are trying to be at the forefront of innovation, and yes, 40 years. In my area with the dress covers and the cushions, a lot has changed, and yeah, it's continuing.
And Karen, if I can come to you finally, obviously you guys have been around for a while as well. I mean, how excited are you to be or to see what's taking place around you?
It's amazing, Alex. I've been in the industry since 1989, working for an airline and now working for a supplier, and it's thrilling to see what's going on in the industry right now. I would say the pandemic was truly an all-time low in the aviation industry, and business is booming now. I met with designers in London back in February, and everyone was really excited about what was going on and completely interested in sustainability and how to evolve in the airline industry. So I think we have exciting times ahead of us.
Excellent. I think we've got an exciting discussion coming up as well in the next 40 minutes or so. Now, Beth, you've already alluded to some of those things that the pandemic kind of brought about. And one of those has been kind of smart materials where you have embedded technology within those at the manufacturing process. A lot of that has been around cabin hygiene with embedded antimicrobial technology for maintenance and for cleanliness kind of stuff. What else are you seeing, in terms of how that can be embedded and infused into products? What are you seeing at that level within your company, but also in the wider market as well, and maybe requirements from airlines to kind of come up with these products and solutions?
I think that one of the interesting things we learned is that there is a lot of available in terms of antimicrobial or other ways of making clean surfaces. But it's not enough. You also have to have the appearance, the durability, the flexibility in terms of branding and changing, all to be requirements that also have to be met. So certainly incorporating those types of technology into the product moving forward makes sense as long as you can meet the other demands of the market. Some of the things that have continued to show a lot of interest is, and it may have evolved this way anyway, but touchless, in the lavatories and things like that are just expected now, where it used to be a new high-end feature that maybe not all the airlines would take. We're seeing that it's really becoming standard in what the airlines look for the future for their lavatories.
Okay, yeah, I want to come on to touchless in a minute, but Karen, I know that your company one of the partners it works with is Safran itself. I mean, what kind of changes have you seen that as a result of the pandemic in terms of how maybe new passenger requirements or concerns and how that's being fed in and designed into, some of the solutions that you're offering?
Well, I do want to touch on the whole idea of antimicrobial protection because there was tremendous interest in that early on in the pandemic. And we provided lots of samples for testing and so much detail to everyone. And then it all sort of evolved. And it's been very interesting to see the transition to an interest in cleanability. So we've been supporting our partners by providing details about how our material holds up to these aggressive cleaners that have been used throughout the pandemic. And now it really has transitioned. I think for airlines to support the whole antimicrobial topic, they really needed to focus on their marketing and the communications to customers. And there haven't been many airlines that have been willing to take that on, quite honestly. It really has been more about the cleaning and how you're going to maintain it. And Beth made a very good point. It's about durability and the aesthetics, maintaining the finish. So we're there to support our seat manufacturers.
Yeah, of course. And also from the airline's perspective, I suppose their perception is what passengers can see. And also you can't always see as a passenger these self-cleaning materials and technology there. So the message is quite hard to get across in some aspects there.
Yes, that's exactly right. So I think about everyone's laptop, about how it has that little bug that says Intel inside. Unless you wanted to put that on your passenger tray tables, for example, no one would know that that was antimicrobial material.
Yeah.
And people don't have in-flight magazines on board any longer, so you really can't communicate to them with a message from the president about this amazing technology that is keeping the aircraft clean.
Yeah, and of course, the pandemic has kind of brought more attention to this, but it's not just about responding to COVID, it's future pandemics as well, and keeping those technologies and solutions going forwards for what might come down the line. I mean, Sama, from your perspective, how have you guys approached maybe how you can embed certain technologies on the self-cleaning side, for example, into some of the materials that you're using?
Well, I guess very similar to what Karen said. At the beginning of the pandemic, there was a lot of interest in this. We were having daily calls with seat vendors and our suppliers to try and work on antimicrobial and antibacterial solutions. I guess with the dress cover materials, a lot of that technology is now in the materials, and the suppliers are offering it. And I guess it's happy kind of results of the pandemic. We will just continue. And I guess traditionally airlines in a hot climate would choose fabric.
Sure.
there's I guess with the pandemic and the desire to clean the aircraft every time, there was more of a move towards leather and synthetic, and that has continued a little bit.
I suppose it's what passengers have got used to, what airlines have got used to as well. We kind of have that familiarity with some of these materials as well, so we kind of expect it on our next flight as well. Carsten, if I can bring you into this now, I mean, how's Deal responded to those kind of maybe requirements, not just from airlines but from passengers as well, and are changing attitudes to travel as passengers?
As you all have already mentioned, I guess we have made a tremendous job in order to find the right technical solutions, and they are available out there right now, and they have been out there. And I think we made another tremendous job in order to show transparency regarding the materials, regarding material durability, and using those technical solutions for cleanliness and hygiene. So I believe it's out there in the market. We are prepared for anything to come. I agree with all the others already that some of those technical solutions are relevant today, for example, in galley or lavatory areas, not in all areas, but some of them will stay as a standard, probably not all of them. But there is a great awareness regarding this topic out there. And of course, you can do a lot of things, do a good job on aesthetics on the cabin interior. So it really appears clean and well structured. So that's how we actually addressed it.
I mean, Beth's already mentioned this earlier on with touchless technology, and that kind of continues the conversation around cabin hygiene and perceptions around safety and security and all that kind of stuff. Now, touchless technology itself has been around for quite a while now. We've seen it in airports, we see it in shopping centres, we see it outside the aircraft cabin as well. We're now beginning to see it more and more within areas such as lavatories, as you mentioned there, galleys, and other aspects of the cabin too. It's not just for hygiene though. If we were talking about lavatories, we can also talk about reducing wastewater. So we've got some environmental and sustainability elements coming into this as well. Now, Beth, maybe you can talk more about how Safran has approached this whole area of touchless and what touchless means to you guys as a company, and where else it could be applied outside of those kind of traditional areas, like the galley or the lavatory.
Well, yes, we introduced touchless into the lavatory on the A350 and have added on the 737 in the past. And what we really see is an acceleration of that trend within our industry since the pandemic. The adoption rate is likely much faster than it would have been without it, but probably would have come anyway. In areas outside of the lavatory and the galley, you're seeing a lot of maybe touchless or low touch types of things getting incorporated into seats in the surrounds, where it may not be actual push buttons, but more very, very light touch, easily cleaned surfaces, etc. And mechanical is good in some ways because it's simpler to control, but we're really moving into digitalization of the cabin. And I think we'll see more of those types of electronic interfaces as we learn to make them more reliable.
Yeah, I mean, Carsten, do you agree with that? Obviously, from your company's perspective, you know, your portfolio is quite expansive as well, and it does incorporate touchless technology there too. How are you approaching this kind of area?
Well, I believe touchless features in particular regarding the lavatory environment, they will become a standard. So they are incorporated into line fit products as we have done in the past as well. And there are retrofit packages available today from us and others on the market. So I think there will be an increasing demand for those components. And as already mentioned, we need to take good care about the maintainability and the functionality of these items. So that is the major purpose when we bring such equipment on board, that it's maintained well and it's functional at all times, and it's reliable. So that's our major task, and this is what we take very serious in order to bring well-proven solutions into the market.
Okay, maybe how applicable can you apply these sorts of technology? I'm talking about the galleys here and specific areas like the washrooms. Can they be applied across all aircraft platforms as well, or do there have to be some considerations to the type of aircraft that they're going to be installed on?
Well, in general, you can apply it to all platforms. Those are generic technologies available for different faucets, touch pads, and things like that. So it is available for all platforms.
It can be universally applied.
Mm-hmm. Definitely.
Yeah. I mean, Karen and Summer, we've spoken there about touchless. Obviously, you guys work with materials which are very tactile. So, but there are opportunities there for you guys to get involved with this, because obviously moving away from maybe the laboratory side and the galley side, and Beth mentioned there earlier on about having this unobtrusive kind of elements to some of these touchless areas. IFE, for example, maybe, or even cabin management systems where the systems there may be embedded into or is hidden away into a panel, and then you press a button and up it comes. So you can't, it's hidden until it's there to be used. And wireless charging, for example, is something else we're beginning to see a lot more of going forwards too. How, maybe even start with you, Karen, how are you guys approaching that element and maybe infusing some of these symbols and directions into the materials that you're working with to kind of support the wider products and the wider touchless environment?
Well, Beth honestly provided a perfect segue into what I wanted to say on this part of the discussion. We've been doing a lot of work recently with our FST CLR and aluminum materials, and it is taking us in new avenues. We're beginning to work with other manufacturers with whom we have not worked previously in the past, and it's really opening up some exciting opportunities. I can't really share much more, but we will be showing something in our booth that will be very exciting for people to see. Beth mentioned low touch and easy cleaning. So those are some of the things that we will be incorporating as we work towards this. You also mentioned incorporating symbols and so forth, and there has been tremendous interest in infusing wireless symbols into our materials so that people can charge their cell phones in an easily accessible area. So that's exciting to see. It's some of the things that you see in automotive are now making their way into aviation.
Yeah, and is this being done at the direction of maybe the airline customers themselves coming to you and saying this is what we want, or what you're seeing, as you mentioned there on the automotive side, is a trend outside the industry which is going to find its way onto the cabin as well?
Yeah.
Absolutely. We're finding on our latest couple of business class, first class seats that we are being asked to emboss the wireless logo into the trims, and I believe it will be the norm very soon.
Do you think that will stay at the front of the cabin in the more premium classes, or will we get, obviously spaces at a premium in the back with economy, so there might not be so much of real estate to be able to use for those, but do you think we might see it being adopted throughout the cabin, or just in certain aspects, certain parts of the cabin class?
I can see some airlines really push the economy product, and they have certain PED holders in the economy, and I can see potentially in the future wireless charging there as well. I mean, I think it's standard to have charging, mobile phone charging now, and even the low-cost airlines are retrofitting. These technologies, and wireless charging is just the next step that we will see soon, I'm sure.
Yeah, it's out there already, so it's just a matter of time before it finds its way on the aircraft itself and throughout the cabin as well, not just in certain areas. I want to talk about connectivity, and I want to talk about maybe the connected cabin and the Internet of Things, and all these wonderful opportunities and benefits for connectivity is opening up for both passengers and crew, but also the airlines themselves as well. And I know you guys are either at the forefront of that with some of your products are out there now, or busy working on some of these in the background as well. Carsten, can I come to you about this and ask what kind of opportunities is connectivity opening up in terms of like the product roadmaps that you're working on at the moment, or the opportunities that could come from having, we've mentioned earlier, those smart materials, embedded sensors into seats and so forth, and that might be able to monitor the temperature of the seat, so you have the thermal controls and thermal comfort there, or maybe help passengers get comfortable and sit properly, and all these kinds of things, what we're seeing introduced on the seating side. What opportunities have you identified, or are you excited about going forward with this kind of thing?
Well, already the last years, the connected cabin has been a major aspect of our innovation work. And as you mentioned, there's a lot of more functionalities and demand within the cabin interior, not limited to seats or any cabin elements. So it's throughout the whole cabin. So there is a necessity of monitoring, collecting data, work with this data and collected throughout the cabin. So there is multifunctional interoperable systems are needed in order to handle all this data. And this is where we work on specific solutions already available now, and they will be enhanced into the future in order to manage all this data and ease the work of or the life of the workforce on the cabin interior. So crew operations, passenger guidance, those are very prominent topics we will follow up on. So that's one aspect of the story. The other one is that when we talk about monuments, galleys, of course, there is a lot of energy needed in order to manage all these systems and drive these systems. So what we provide is energy efficient solutions in order to tick the sustainability box as well, because the more electrical functionality we see in the cabin, the more energy is needed. And so there is a great demand of a reduction for that energy consumption, and therefore energy efficiency and weight reduction is a major topic for us. So well integrated equipment and components and cabin systems, that's the key for the future, I believe. And this is what we believe in, and that's why we're working on those things. And we will show some of those solutions on the show.
Excellent. I look forward to seeing those. Maybe if I can turn to you, Karen, quickly. Being able to go beyond traditional components and products, I'm thinking more about how we can make more use of the monuments and more of the panels and more of the walls around us. I know there's a big discussion at the moment about an immersive experience for the passenger, being better engaged with the passenger and those interactions. We've kind of spoken about minimizing touch points as well within the passenger journey. The cabin itself is kind of a fixed dimensions. We can't do too much with it. We can't expand it or if it's smaller. We can densify it with more seating and so forth. But we can become more creative with how we use what is around us. And we're beginning to see that now through smart technology, maybe embedding monuments with screens or that display information about the flights or about the food service, that kind of stuff. Are you seeing a lot of demand from the companies that you're working with, your partners and your airline customers as well, to kind of have more intelligence built into some of those materials? And how do you go about that? Because it's not a very simple procedure to kind of integrate all these kind of complex functions into these materials.
Right. So it's an evolution. I think we bring out new products and make some suggestions about how people might use them. And then we sit back and wait and see how people suggest they use them. And sometimes they come up with amazing things that have never occurred to us. I've seen a lot of designs on the internet recently from various design firms where they're showing clear screens where dividers have traditionally appeared and information that is relevant to what the passengers are experiencing at that point in the flight is being cast upon that screen. And so we have several new materials that I think can be used in that way. We're looking for partners to explore that with us. And I think that's a development process. That technology exists in other places, as we've referenced before. And I think we can begin taking advantage of it within the aircraft environment.
Okay. Maybe someone like, obviously, on the seating side, maybe have more intelligent seats that monitor, the body's temperature, or remind them, like we do with our phones, to drink water at certain points, or all these kind of things that can help improve our flying experience. What kind of work are you working on? What kind of conversations have you had with partners and airline customers as well about maybe having materials which are smart or embedded with intelligence to kind of connect with all the other products that are on board the aircraft?
I think not that many, to be honest. With the, I guess our line of work is the dress covers and the softness of the seats. But I mean, I guess with the Wi-Fi, with the wireless charging and general enhancement of the development of the business class and first class seats and pods and trimming that goes around the seats, we're generally seeing the standard improving, the required standards. soft touch, a lot of embossing logos, and I guess a trend of the airlines looking for finer details. I we feel that the seats and the shape of them, the size, the pods, and the angles, the herringbone angles, are all quite similar now, and a lot of the seat vendors are offering a very similar product. Then the finer touches are where, and the technologies, smart technologies, essentially where the airlines and designers are really looking to stand out.
Maybe I could add on and maybe change the focus a little bit there is smart manufacturing, maybe then, and maybe how you approach product development and you approach the manufacturing process, and with regards to the dress covers, and so how you develop those, how you cut them as well. Are we seeing greater efficiencies being offered by some technologies to make that more efficient, and being able to deliver those to the aircraft or to the airline customer, the turnaround time a lot quicker? Are there been advancements in that area as well, not just within the technology, but we actually get to see as a passenger or as a crew member?
Yeah, I think it generally takes quite a long time for, well, we see that seats take quite a long time to get into the market, new seats, with the testing, the dynamic testing, and then the flam testing, and I think there is improvements in that. The seat vendors are using computers to analyze how the seats will react before they actually test, and they've reduced the amount of time it takes. And then with us, so the burn testing can always be an issue, and analysis of data, I think, is the seat vendors are doing this to reduce these times, development times.
Okay, I want to stick with you, if I may, Summer, because I want to introduce the whole question of sustainability. We've kind of touched upon it briefly already with some of the other questions and answers there. Obviously, you've mentioned dress covers. Some of these materials or products are quite disposable. We've mentioned how cabin hygiene has been a big issue. Wellness and health are big issues for the passenger as well. How have you introduced a more sustainable approach to how you produce these dress covers and maybe extend their durability without diminishing their quality and the way they look as well, the aesthetic side of all of this?
And there's obviously a very big drive to find sustainable materials, and the whole supply chain for an airline, I guess, to be more sustainable. And it is difficult in the dress cover area because the lighter you go with a material, the more likely you are to have a flam test failure. So the material suppliers are always trying to reduce the weight of their material, and we reduce the foams, and we always try to reduce the weight. But it's not that simple because the combination test, you can't have a more than 10% weight reduction when you flam test, and so often lighter materials potentially mean poorer durability, and sometimes you do have to introduce a heavier fibre, and it's counterproductive. It's also difficult to use recycled materials, generally in all areas of the cabin, because we have to use highly engineered materials that are not allowed to have foreign objects or inconsistency. But there are, the material suppliers are all working on their sustainable materials, and I think seat vendors are also doing this, and to reduce waste and renewable energies.
I mean, Karen, how's your company and how are you ensuring a sustainable life cycle of the products that you have and the products you're working on at the moment as well and going forwards? How important is that kind of area to you guys?
So it's great to see the emphasis on sustainability these days. It's taken a while. I think people in the UK are probably more attuned to it than people here in the US, but there is interest here in the States now as well. People are really embracing this and realizing that it's a serious problem for our planet. Sekisui Kydex has been recycling material for 20 years, and so it's nothing new to us, but we've been working very closely with Tony Seville at AIRA to recycle scrap. And in fact, Cephalon is one of our best customers, and we've been working with Tony on a program for Beth's company to get their scrap recycled back into the thermoplastic that we're manufacturing for them. So we're excited to talk to people further about that at the Aircraft Interiors Expo. And we recently, actually last year, we did a soft launch of a new product called 5555 RCL for recycled. And there's been tremendous interest in that product. Literally every single London design firm that I met with back in February asked me about that specific product. And it's new, and we're looking for people who are interested in developing an ongoing program with us. So it's not just that we're going to slap this material on a seat. It really needs to be something that we've designed from the beginning, where it goes through all the testing and everyone works with us over an extended period of time to make sure that it will work for them and that they embrace the concept. So looking forward to more discussions about that, quite honestly, in June.
Yeah. Beth, I mean, Karen made a nice segment there about working with you guys at Cephalon. What does sustainability mean to you guys, and how are you incorporating that into not only, as I said, with Karen, current products, but also the ones you're working on that you might see coming down the line as well?
Well, Cephalon is very committed to the 2050 zero carbon, and all the way from our engine development through to the cabin. And we'll see from the entire industry, and it's going to take the entire industry, a lot of different solutions being presented at AIX. There's, certainly the aspect of producing the product, our buildings, et cetera. That's a big focus. And then in the terms of the product, if you're going to achieve the recyclability as well as the lower weight, the longer life, perhaps in the aircraft, all of these are sustainability goals. And if you're going to achieve it, it's going to take fundamental building block changes. We can't just make a small adaptation of the fundamental materials in this industry. To make that change, it's going to take new materials, new production methodology, and new specifications, perhaps. But there's a lot going on, and we'll see incremental solutions, everything from the product to the systems, to the passenger experience. It's important to passengers regionally, some areas more than others, but it's probably the number one thing we hear about from our customers.
And do you think we might see more of an uptake on the 3D printing side of things and having that additive manufacturing that will help reduce weights and maybe cost the airlines as well, when you can produce these in maybe the smaller components? Would that be something that we can see introduced?
Yeah, additive manufacturing is being used and deployed in our industry now, and on a production basis. There may be opportunities because of the way that you can build up some products instead of assemble them, that you can end up with lower weight product. So in those cases, we'll use additive manufacturing when appropriate. The different materials are also being worked heavily in that space as well. And really, material science is a big part of what has to happen for the future of our products. By all of us, every single one of us on this call, we're all working very hard in those areas.
It's certainly a collaborative effort. I mean, Carsten, from your perspective and Dill's perspective, that's similar to Beth. Your product portfolio is quite huge. You're in different areas within the cabin itself. Is sustainability driving your product roadmap, your agenda going forward? And how are you kind of dealing with all the targets for airlines and national governments are setting to kind of meet these? They're quite ambitious for some of them. And have that circular economy introduced more into product development as well?
Well, yeah, I can only underline what has been said by my colleagues here before. So yes, it is a major topic for us, not only for innovation, but it needs to be realized in certain steps right now already. So I think there are two major streams. One has already been mentioned, so the carbon neutral production of our products, and that is our own production, and of course incorporating all the material supplies and supplier landscape we work with. So, and there's a tremendous effort already being done, but there needs to be further effort to be realized. And the other one is looking at our products in life, in service. And there we have two topics. This is one, tremendous weight saving, and of course, recyclability as one aspect of a start of a circular economy. So as mentioned before, we have always saved weight on all our new platforms and aircraft generations and all the products implemented there. And of course, we have always used recycling processes within the production cycles of our products. But I think we enter a new decade of these things now. And so we need new solutions. And it is probably not only picking out one technology, but it is the key to success is use the right technology for the right product in order to balance weight reduction and recyclability as one part of circular economy very well. And so we need to work on the specifications. We need to rethink our product design in order to enable the possibility to use different materials in order to enhance recyclability. And so there is a lot of effort being done right now, and we will carry it on into a very bright future.
Alex, if I may, I actually wanted to comment on that, because it really starts with design. As new items are being developed, they need to be designed in such a way that they can be taken apart at the end of their life, separated, recycled, and put back in, so that it's basically a cradle-to-cradle experience. And what we found with a lot of seats, monuments, et cetera, that have been developed in the past is that they might have had materials that had a capped surface or something, and you can't separate those easily. And so going forward, we need to be very cognizant of how we design these items that are going into the aircraft cabin.
Well, I guess there also needs to be the support from the infrastructure as well, to be able to have that recyclability as well, and be able to go through and pick out what can be recycled and all that kind of stuff, which is lacking around the world. It's not joined up around the world as much as it should be at the moment. So that's a bit of a hindrance.
Exactly.
Do you think on those points that there needs to be legislation, needs to be led by governments, or can the industry do it itself, have that light touch? Who should be the driver behind this approach, really, to more sustainable product design? Or would it come naturally, as you say, from the designers?
I think it's a group effort. I think we in the industry need to embrace it and move forward and come up with great solutions on our own. Otherwise, we will face regulation. And I think the aviation industry typically has tried to avoid that in the past. If you develop something on your own, then it can be on your own terms, as opposed to being forced to do something a certain way.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Now,
I actually believe that the passenger is one of the major drivers, because we're globally connected. So globalization is a key topic, and people want to meet other cultures, so they will travel in the future. But I believe they will travel want to travel in a sustainable way. So they will be the major driver, and our industry altogether as a group, we need to serve our customers very well and have answers to those questions.
Sadly, no one here on this call is of the generation that's going to be pushing this.
Exactly.
I hear from my daughters about how my generation is ruining the world, and I like to think that's my mother's generation, not mine. I think we're going to come up with solutions.
Yeah, that's very true. That's very true. And it kind of leads, I mean, Beth mentioned or kind of introduced this area a minute ago about material science. I don't want to keep going back to the pandemic, but has the pandemic changed our approach to the types of colours that we are seeing on board aircrafts now, and maybe the materials and the finishes, the whole conversation around CMF, has that changed pre-pandemic to where we are now? I mean, what kind of things can we look forward to in terms of maybe a new colour palette, for example? Karen, can I come to you and see, are we going away from some of those traditional colours that we may have seen previously to more outrageous, brand new, bright, fresh colours to kind of to go with the recovery that we're seeing with air travel as well? What's that relationship like at the moment?
Well, I can tell you a little bit about the evolution. So it's complete happenstance that I chose this outfit to wear today, and you're seeing my background. It has nothing to do with what I'm about to say. As I referenced, it's very difficult to separate out materials. And so from our standpoint, we create custom color for our seat manufacturers and our airline customers. And you can have basically any color you want on your seat. But then when that scrap gets recycled, it comes back in from thermoformers and seat manufacturers, and we recycle our own scrap as it gets trimmed, as it comes down the extrusion line. It's all a different color. And unless you spend a lot of time sorting out those colors into red bins, blue bins, gray bins, purple bins, then you can't really choose what color you're going to get. When you combine all that scrap together, basically the color that you get is black or gray, perhaps, if you're lucky. And right now we're doing such a good job of recycling at Sekisui Kydex, we aren't getting the reds and the purples. We aren't getting enough of that to create that color. So that's a challenge when someone wants a specific color. Going back several years, I think a lot of designers were very interested in recycled materials. And so they were looking for material that looked recycled. If you think about paper, brown craft paper or paper with flecks in it, that said recycled material to people. And so I think they were hoping that thermoplastics could have that recycled look. When it gets extruded, it all gets mushed together and comes out in a flat sheet, and it's as smooth and even as can be. So the RCL product that I referenced earlier that we launched last year was black, the color of my turtleneck. So we're trying hard to see how we can develop other colors and make those available to people. But designers, honestly, this year don't seem to be as hung up on having something that looks recycled as just having a product that is recycled. So I view that as a significant evolution in the market that is positive, because it's embracing something that has been a challenge in the past.
Sure. I mean, Samara, from your perspective, obviously with the dress colors and other materials that you're using, are you introducing new materials to these things as well? And on the finish side of things, I know you mentioned about the handcrafting. Does that present any opportunities or challenges for you guys going forwards?
No, so sorry, Alex, can you repeat the question?
Yeah, I'm just thinking from your perspective, from what your company's involved in, the activities that you guys have with the dress covers and so forth, how much scope is there to introduce new colours and to get away from maybe traditional kind of variants of things? And on the finish side, I know your expertise is in like handcrafting and hand cutting some of these finishes too. How is that changing your approach to what you can and can't do with terms to new materials and new colours and so forth?
I guess we're mainly in the middle. We're the middleman. So often the designers and the airlines will come up with the colours and the materials. They'll talk to the different suppliers. So a lot of the colours are really chosen by them. And the materials are very similar to what we've had in the last 20 years. A lot more synthetic materials come in, probably in the last 10 years, but maybe even more so since the pandemic. And the designs are I guess suited for we feel that the designs are suited for the airline and the regions. So Hawaiian potentially will have quite Hawaiian style colors, and Allegiant have a very bright color. So and then the Middle East would have maybe light colors in fabric. So it's very much kind of guided by the airline and the region.
Sure. And I suppose obviously the brand as well, and how you can embed some of those branding elements into these materials as well, not just on the panels, but also with the logos maybe of the airline. As you say, certain motifs can be incorporated into some of these materials and certain aspects of the seating or the monuments and so forth. But we're seeing a lot of creativity around those kind of areas too. Carsten and Beth, how do you approach colour? Is colour important to you guys when you're developing new products, and how maybe your solutions work and marry with other elements of the cabin as well? I mean, how do you approach, because there is a psychological element behind some of these, behind colours for passengers, about the warmth or maybe our perception of the cabin, if it's clean, if it's new, or if it's inviting, that kind of stuff. So do you have to think about colors and the materials and the finishing when you're developing products and so forth?
Of course, color. Well, Beth, you go first, Beth.
The current trend with passengers right now is comfort and colors that bring about comfort and feeling safe and clean is also important. So those are some of the things we're seeing. As stated before, the airlines generally have a color preference, but in the design phase, the whole feeling that is going to be brought to the cabin by the airline brand does get very close to color. So I think our job is to be flexible and to be able to enable the color palette, but also the comfort items.
Cool.
Carson, maybe you're taking a different approach.
Well, in some cases it's similar, but it might be different. So yes, color is definitely a topic for us, and we try in order to support the element of cleanliness. So more standardized, more bright colors are definitely a topic for us. No hidden areas within the cabin. And so on the other hand, we see more standardization. So, and that is a very good topic for the complete sustainability story of the cabin as well. So if we can achieve more standardization and we can achieve weight savings with that, it serves two aspects. So we always use a double approach on that. So support the comfort, support the cleanliness, but support the design approach of our products as well. And that is incorporating the surface finish, not only one color, but it's the complete surface finishing when we introduce new technologies in order to make a surface decoration that serves both those items.
Sure, okay. That's interesting stuff. We're all representatives of various companies. We all work within the industry. We're passengers as well, so we're quite privileged to be able to test and enjoy these products as well, not just manufacture them and make them and so forth. Are there any lessons or takeaways that we can have from other sectors that we might be able to say that could be an influence we will see being brought on board the aircraft? And we know with automotive, they're influencing how the seats are manufactured, for example. Are there any other sectors that we can look at and go, some of those elements there we quite like, and they can be applied to the cabin? I don't know who wants to jump in there and see where kind of their influences are coming from, maybe their inspirations.
So I'm eager to hear what Beth has to say about this, honestly.
One thing that I think we all experience every day is when we are on the ground, our lives are driven through our mobile interfaces, and that world digitalization is absolutely happening in the cabin. We talked about connectivity within the cabin, but one of the biggest things that is happening is the air-to-ground communication is also being added to that. So while you have, flight attendants with their pads on one network, you have also a whole maintenance aspect going on with air-to-ground communications. And it's really going to revolutionize the cabin experience. So you have connectivity either on a Wi-Fi network or on a embedded network in the aircraft. And then that communication to the ground, add on top the cloud network, and our entire industry, the operations on the ground, all the way up to the aircraft, the passengers experience are all in the next 10 years will be completely enabled and changed. And we'll see a lot of that at AIX, and it's going to be very exciting. Karen, was that
Sam,
what you were expecting?
Sam, can I just bring you in, sir? You were going to jump in as well. What are your...
So, I mean, that's what Beth said is very interesting and very exciting. And what I was going to say is with the dress covers and the foams and the design of the business class, first class, noticed that there's a domestic influence coming in. So the old style soft sofas that give the passenger a kind of nice comfort image straight away. And so we just noticed this, as well as chasing the automotive influences and
yeah, there seems to be, when we talk about in-flight entertainment and connectivity, we all talk about having that at-home experience. And it's similar from a technology point of view with the seating and some of the materials. That's been applied to that as well. With Ottomans being in suites, for example, you get those at home, as you say there, the sofas. It's going back to those wonderful days of the past where flying really was, the golden age and so forth. I mean, Karen, you've heard what Beth said there. How do you respond to that, and where's your influences and inspiration coming from?
I can tell you, we launched decorative textures several years ago, and there's been a tremendous response. We have several airline customers who are incorporating it into new programs that they're going to be introducing in the future. And it's a way of affecting the passengers' emotional response to their environment and creating aesthetically pleasing finishes to surround themselves with, and to support that branding initiative that the airline is seeking. So that's an exciting development to see in the industry.
Yeah, Carsten, where's your company gazing towards to kind of get maybe external inspiration and influence from?
Yeah, I think the most visible item is actually the connectivity, as Beth already mentioned, like, for example, bring your own device and things like that. So there's a lot of things driven by the automotive industry. And when you look at the whole mobility ecosystem, then the aerospace industry is one part of that mobility ecosystem. And when you think about urban air mobility, and there are a lot of activities in urban air mobility as well, and that is transferring ground transportation into the air, and of course has a connection to what we traditionally do in aerospace industry. So this is actually where we take the inspiration from, to combine all these items into very good solutions, and connectivity is one major item for that, in order to give our passengers or the aircraft passengers the best at-home feeling and the best service we can offer. Yeah.
Excellent. And of course, Hamburg AIX is just a few weeks away from recording this discussion here. I guess we're going to see some of these trends that we've spoken about when we fly there, however we get there, from wherever we're flying from. And of course, as we mentioned, some of these solutions and some of these trends will be on display at the various booths of your companies as well. So I do encourage anyone that's watching who is attending AIX to go and check out the relevant booths and say hello. It just leaves me to say thank you very much indeed, guys, for joining me today. Thank you very much indeed for watching wherever you are. I hope you've enjoyed it. I certainly have. And yeah, thank you.
Alex, thank you. And thank all my co-members. It's wonderful.
Well,
good time.
Thank you
Great
all.
to be included.
Very good.
Thank you.